Hey everybody, my name's Richard. I'm creating this site to just read my story that I want to get out there. Tell you my story that I want to get out there. If you want to follow along, it's fine. But this one right here, this is about a poem that I wrote. I'm not a poet. I'm not a professional. I don't even know how poems are supposed to start or how they'll end, and what words you might not use in them, what words you might. I've been sick. I'm okay now, but I've had quite a few. I've had three operations, four, I don't know. And I'm okay. I'm still sick, but I'm okay. But my second operation, I came out of there with these images. I just couldn't get them out of my head. They tormented me at night when I was alone, because in the shadows, that's where you see them the most, your most horrific dreams and nightmares. It's called In the Shadows of Heaven. That's what the story's called. But I don't know if these images that I'm going to recite to you, earlier in my life, I went to a Catholic school, and, those nuns and priests, they beat things into you, and maybe that's where this all came to. And then I went to a public school. I don't know, because I don't know honestly what I believe in. Okay, don't get mad at me. Don't start freaking out. I'm not saying there's not a God. I'm not saying there's not a supreme being. I have questions like everybody else. For instance, before I get into the poem, I find it hard to wrap my mind around eternity and infinity, and this is why. The Earth is, 4.50 something billion years old, right? The Bible doesn't correlate with that. It gives it a much lesser time. And then it gives a much lesser time even for human inhabitants. But my point is, it doesn't matter when it started. What I'm getting at is, God is eternity, is infinity, right? So if we know how old the world is, what was God doing before that? And wrap your mind around infinity and eternity. That went on and on and on, if you can. So what was he doing before the 4-point-something billion years? Before we were, what was he doing? In a void somewhere twiddling his thumb? Or, one theory is, and I kind of don't have a problem with it, it's not putting God down, the Big Bang Theory, right? It created life, right? That's what they say. Well, what if that's what created God? What if the Big Bang Theory created a supreme intelligence, created God, a supreme being, and then he created us? Is that where he came from? Because other than that, again, what was he doing before he created us? Infinity is forever, if you can wrap your mind around it. Our Earth wasn't forever. It's not forever. It has a starting time. So before that, what was he doing? I mean, I know he created the angels in heaven, but still, before that, what, twiddling his thumbs? Or did the Big Bang? I have a lot. You know what? If you keep coming back to this site, other than this poem, I'm going to talk about other things, and I have a lot of stuff like that. I have a lot of questions. I don't have answers. I have questions. I'm not putting it down. Any religion, I'm not putting it down. I just have questions. And here's one more little thing to put out there to think about. Something I thought about a lot. I heard it somewhere. I thought about this a lot. People have the hardest time believing in aliens or, from another world. Like there can't be life somewhere else. We're the only ones. Numero uno. But think about it. I think even Jesus tried to hint around. In the Bible, Jesus says to his followers, "My Father's house has many rooms." What do you think he meant by that? Do you think he meant they have an almost center room over here, they have a good room over here, a really good room over here, a great room over here? I tend to think or go along with the theory that Jesus was saying, "My Father's house has many rooms," meaning God created life on other planets. That's how I look at it. Jesus was telling them there's life out there. My Father's house has many rooms, not just Earth. That's just my, But anyway, that's why these images, they come to me and I had to get them out. The worst time is at night. I don't sleep well, but so let me just recite. And this is, and like I said, I'm not a professional, okay? So, it's it's called In the Shadows of Heaven. In my time of dying, images assailed my mind, torments and horrors with no sense of time. The taste of sulfur fills the air. It smothers my nostrils and feeds my fear. Death is a road we all must travel. Some go willingly, some are going to try and battle. The road winds along the river called Styx, here where the devil plies his trade and comes up with new tricks. It is desolate and colorless, foreboding and grim. You feel yourself fading. You feel life's light grow dim. The souls of the damned line this road that you walk, and somehow you just know eyes forward and never, ever talk. Monsters and demons abide in this land, while the devil grins and winks, telling you he's your biggest fan. Held tight on a leash of brimstone and fire, hellhounds snarl and snap at you, their only desire. Their eyes a maelstrom of hate and contempt for our souls they so crave, to drag us kicking and screaming, unable to be saved. Their tails burn like candles, their claws feel like ice. In the end, whether they seize you or not, you don't want to roll that dice. Their fangs covered in blood, uneaten flesh dripping from their teeth, and entrails were piled high at their feet. Satan stood looking with hounds on a chain, lording it over this ungodly land that he claimed. For the light bearer he once was, the guardian of bright. Until God set us above him, he took that as a slight. A third of all the angels openly swore to fight God's word. Thus they declared war. The angels cried, "Strike down the serpent and bind him in chains, imprison him for all eternity and snuff out his flames." The war lasted eons, and heaven's gate crumbled, and the souls of the damned, they started to double. The pillars of heaven trembled amidst this great upheaval, but God's warriors stood firm, defying all evil. Both sides were ruthless and gave no quarter, until the angels gained an advantage. Thus began the slaughter. Driven out of heaven, they were forced to reside in this land, to torture and mutilate the souls of the damned. In my time of dying, I saw this, the great war that was waged to allow God's greatest creation, man, to come of age. Off in the distance, I saw a plate, flat, shiny, and round, held suspended in the air by a pole 30 feet from the ground. Teetering and tottering, it threatened to fall, with sinners running to and fro, begging God to hear their call. While below this unsteady platform, biding their time, stood 100 hounds of hell waiting to dine. The souls dropped like rocks, landing with a thud. The hellhounds pounced, ripping and tearing. Only bits were left lying in the mud. The souls who conquered the plate and were able to hold could not protect their eyes from the pecking of crows. And Satan stood watching, presiding over all, trembling with laughter, so delighted to watch them fall. But what fed my fear even more was watching the souls who fell be deposited again and again back on the platform floor. Hell's road is long, and before the gate stands three-headed Cerberus to seal your fate. In the shadows of heaven, hell lives and breathes, collecting souls in piles like so many leaves. Then a voice in my head that was so light and so sweet It began telling me, down here, my darling, you're nothing but meat. Off in the distance, a small light began to glow, while inside me a warmth began to grow. My eyes snapped open. I was not dead. I was still in the hospital, lying in bed. A nurse leaned over me, all full of smiles. Welcome back, Richard. We lost you for a while. My eyes opened wide when I saw the clock on the wall. 12 hours had passed since my fall. I asked my nurse again if it was really only 7, then told her of my journey through hell in the shadows of heaven. That's it. Like I said, not a professional, but I needed to get them out. And as I started writing it, it started to rhyme, and I just threw it together. I didn't throw it together. It started to rhyme and started getting fun. Have some fun with it, because it scares the shit out of me any other time. So, like I said, that was it. Thank you. Thank you for listening.